In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the issue of whether or not plants are sentient beings and the implications of that issue. Okay, so if plants are sentient beings, if it turns out that plants do feel pain, they do have experiences, then would it follow from that humans should refrain from eating plants, or that it doesn't make any difference whether humans eat plants or animals? To the first issue, are plants sentient beings? Now, I think that a lot of people, probably most people, are just going to dismiss this question out of hand and say, plants are definitely not sentient beings. Which, by the way, is what a lot of people do with non-human animals as well. And I think that it is absolutely ridiculous for humans to assume that any non-human animals do not feel, do not think, do not have experiences. And I also think it's ridiculous to assume that plants do not feel, think, have experiences, that plants are not sentient. I think it's absolutely insane to believe that plants are not sentient based on what we know about plants. We do know that plants respond to stimuli in their environment. That's how plants survive. If a plant sends down roots into the soil beneath it, and in one area the roots hit dry, poor soil where there aren't any nutrients and there isn't any moisture. Whereas the plant, some of the other roots, find moisture and rich soil. Are the plants just going to keep sending roots out to both places? Of course not. If the plant sends roots to the poor soil, those roots are going to die, and the plant is going to fail to get proper nourishment. So the plant is going to devote its energy to sending roots into soil that's good, that it's worth the plant's while. Okay? We also know that plants, when they're being attacked by pests, they sometimes send out, or maybe always, but at least sometimes, we have observed that some plants at times send out chemical signals that help to attract predator animals to come and eat the pests that are eating the plants. Okay? It's a defense mechanism. So we know that plants respond to stimuli. And the broadest definition of being sentient would be something in the neighborhood of, is it capable of responding to stimuli within its environment? Because we can't know that the plant actually thinks or feels. Clearly it perceives somehow, and it responds to its perceptions. It changes its behavior based on what it perceives. We know that plants do this. If plants didn't do this, they wouldn't survive. Okay, so to dismiss the notion that plants might be sentient, I think is absolutely idiotic. And unfortunately, it's what I hear from a lot of vegans when they're confronted with this idea that plants feel pain too, so it's not better to eat plants than to eat animals. But let's get to the other issue, okay? Let's say that we know that plants are sentient, and we don't know that they are. We don't know that plants feel. We just don't know that they don't, okay? We actually don't know that all other animals are sentient beings either. We have good reason to believe that they are, based on the fact that all vertebrate animals, for example, have virtually identical anatomy with regard to the brain and the nervous system. So it's pretty crazy to think that some animals are sentient, but others with virtually identical brains are not. That's pretty out there, pretty stupid. However, it is a popular view. It's been held by probably the majority of humans who have lived in modern history. And I think it's a moronic view, given the evidence. Okay? Human brains do not differ dramatically from the brains of other vertebrate animals. We also look at invertebrate animals, and we can see that they respond to stimuli. They seem to feel fear and pain, and obviously they're capable of learning, because otherwise how would they even survive? If a wasp, for example, flies around looking for a food source in a given area and fails to find it, and then finds food in a different area, the wasp isn't going to repeatedly go back to the area where it has never found food. It's going to try the place where it did find food, and if it keeps finding food there, it's going to keep going back there. Okay, so that suggests at least some form of intelligence, some form of sentience, and likewise the plant that sends out signals saying, hey, I'm being attacked, come and eat these bugs that are eating me. That suggests some level of intelligence. We can't prove that plants have experiences. We can't prove that other animals have experiences. However, the smart money is on all animals being sentient beings, and as far as plants, I tend to think that plants probably do feel pain. When I see a plant that is dying and sickly and just looks terrible, I infer suffering. I think that plant is probably suffering, and I feel empathy for the plant. And I want to do everything I can to help that plant get better. That I have a desire to do that. Okay? Okay, so let's get to the issue now. Let's just assume for a minute, for argument's sake, that plants are sentient beings. Does it follow from that eating plants is no different than eating animals? The answer to that question is obviously no, okay? It does not follow. To say that plants feel pain, therefore eating plants is the same as eating animals, is a non sequitur. It does not follow. And here's why, okay? Think about how we eat plants, okay? Think about what we're eating when we're eating plants. For example, let's take fruit that grows either on a tree or a vine or a bush, whatever, okay? When I remove a tomato from the plant, I don't harm the plant in any way. If I left the tomato on there and nobody else ate it, nobody else took it, no other animals ate it, the tomato would just shrivel up and rot. And the plant would not be, well, the plant actually might be harmed by leaving it on for too long, because it's going to put energy into keeping that part of the plant alive when there's no good reason to do so. It might not harm the plant in any way to leave it on, but it certainly doesn't harm the plant to take it off. In the case of a lot of tree fruit, such as mangoes, cherimoyas, papayas, apples, oranges, bananas, almonds, walnuts, pecans, oftentimes we don't even have to pull anything off of any branches of any trees. We can wait until the fruit falls and then harvest it off of the ground. And that doesn't hurt the trees in any way, shape, or form, okay? Some of you out there might say, well, wait a minute, it does hurt the chance that the tree will reproduce. But that's actually false as well, because taking the fruit away from the location where it fell from the tree and eating the flesh and then spitting out the seeds, or in many cases, animals, including humans, eat the seeds and fail to digest all of the seeds, so then when they defecate, they poop out the seeds, and the seeds are surrounded by fertilizer. So it not only can be helpful to the chance that that tree will reproduce, but not only because of the fertilization that comes from digesting and processing the seeds and then pooping them out, but in the case of seeds that we don't eat, like take a mango for example, if we just leave the mangoes on the ground underneath the tree from which they fell, the mangoes are not going to be able to grow very well, at least most of them are not going to grow, because the parent tree is going to take up so much of the light, so much of the nutrients and water in the soil, that the new trees are not going to thrive. They're not going to get enough sunshine, they're not going to get enough water, because the big tree is taking up all of the energy. So just eating the mango flesh and then dropping the seed in a different location also can be beneficial to that tree's chances of reproducing successfully. Another thing about this is, if we want to raise animals so that we can eat them, the animals have to eat something. And so eating animals does not eliminate the need for growing crops and eating plants. Okay, growing crops to feed to the animals so that then we can eat the animals. So all we're doing by eating animals, by farming animals, is adding an extra step, and we're making the process of producing food very inefficient, much less efficient than if we just grew crops. We focused our energy on growing plants so that we could eat the plants. Okay? So we don't save any plants by eating animals. We cause more plants to be eaten if we're eating animals, because it takes something like between 15 and 20 pounds of food fed to the animals. So this food is usually grain, soybeans, things of that nature. It's fed to the animals, and then in order to produce 1 pound of meat. So 15 to 20 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of meat. So it's terribly inefficient to grow meat for humans to eat. This is a crazy thing that humans have been doing for the last few hundred years, and it's not a good idea. And the more populated the earth gets with humans, the less sustainable the practice of animal agriculture will become. It's already become unsustainable. It's not going to work long term. So I gave the example of fruit trees and the fruit that, taking the fruit doesn't hurt the trees in any way. Well, let's think about other plants, such as leafy vegetables, like spinach, lettuce. One way to harvest these plants is to just wait until they're a certain size and then pull the whole plant out of the ground and eat the whole thing. Okay? In which case we've killed the plant. Okay? That is one way of doing things. And it's one way that things are typically done on factory farms. Okay? Not the best way to do things, however. Okay? Another way, another viable means of harvesting leaves from leafy vegetables is to take a few leaves at a time while leaving the rest of the leaves alone. So take the larger outer leaves, which then, by the way, allows the plant to put more energy into the new leaves, the smaller leaves, and then those leaves get big and more leaves grow. And so even with something like that, where obviously, at least in some sense, you are harming the plant by taking a leaf away. You're tearing off a part of the plant, and you're killing that particular leaf. But the rest of the leaves on the plant do not die due to the fact that you took off some leaves from the plant. And the plant continues to grow, continues to thrive. And so while it might be the case that that head of lettuce or that bunch of spinach, that one plant, does feel pain every time we rip off a leaf, it doesn't kill the plant. But we can't just cut off a piece of an animal and allow the animal to keep living. It doesn't work that way. Okay? But with plants, even if we are hurting them, even if we're hurting them in a way, we're not harming them in such a way that they are no longer going to be able to survive or even thrive. I mean, this is how I harvest my lettuce and spinach. I tear off a leaf at a time. When I go out to harvest some leaves to make a salad or just to graze while I'm outside, I don't take a whole bunch of leaves off of one plant and leave other plants untouched. No, I take a leaf off of each plant in a group of plants. I take a few leaves here and there from each plant. And so the rest of the plant thrives. It doesn't hurt the plants. in any observable way. But we can't say that about any animals. If you cut off the leg of a chicken to eat the leg, that chicken's going to die. Even if you did it in such a way as to allow the chicken to survive with one leg, you've hurt the chicken. And you've hurt the chicken's chances of survival. Okay? You've risked killing the chicken. Likewise, if you cut off just a piece of flesh from a cow, but not a big enough piece to kill the cow, you've still harmed the cow. And the cow isn't going to regenerate that piece of flesh. Okay? And the cow isn't going to thrive. It's not going to, oh, well, now all my energy goes into the rest of my body and the rest of my body will get stronger. No, it doesn't work that way with animals. So there isn't any way to take meat, to harvest meat from animals without harming the animals. So whether or not plants are sentient beings is completely fucking irrelevant to the issue of whether or not veganism is better than non-veganism. Whether eating plants is better for the environment, for human health, for the welfare of animals, and for the welfare of plants for that matter, than eating animals is. Okay? It's completely irrelevant. Not only that, but humans must eat plants in order to survive. If all a human did was to eat animals all the time, that human would not live a very long or healthy life. Because humans are not carnivores. Humans are by nature herbivores. Okay? To think otherwise is insane. You want to believe that humans are naturally omnivores? That's a stretch. Because humans cannot live without plants. But humans can live quite well without eating animals. In fact, all the research suggests, all the evidence points to a plant-based diet being better for human health than a diet that includes animal products. Animal agriculture does not solve any problems. It only creates problems. It is a terrible thing to be doing. Veganism is the answer. Veganism is superior to non-veganism. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel for more videos about veganism, about health, about fitness, and about other social issues. I also post a lot of videos of animals that I observe behaving in ways that I find interesting. Thanks again for watching.